Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our channel, our Scientology stories, Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm going to bring in my co-host right now, Janis Gillham Grady. Hi, Janis. How you doing today?
Aloha, Mark, and g'day, everybody. Today we have a special video for you because because of popular demand and because he was there, we're bringing back my old friend Neville Chamberlin, who was the first Sea Project Sea Org member I ever met in 1967 at St. Hill in England.
Welcome, Neville. How you doing?
Fine, thank you. Yes, good, thanks.
Good. Nice to have you back. Right. Our listeners enjoyed you.
Absolutely.
That's a start.
So today we're going to talk about some very early days in the Sea Org of the Royal Scotman. And this is a ship that was purchased by L. Ron Hubbard in, I think, around November of 67. And I showed up on this ship. Oh, I'm wrong, Neville?
65.
The Royal Scotman.
Yeah, they started that process way back when, okay?
Oh, okay.
And I went on board in 67. I went board, but they started the process where they were looking for parts from the boneyard up in the Royal Naval Yard to get parts to bring from the Avon River. Long before then, after that, the Scotsman was in discussion, and I think they ended up negotiating £55,000.
Yeah, something like that. Joe Van Staden did that mission to obtain the Scotsman,
along with Ron Pook and John Lawrence.
Right, but I think didn't they loaded aboard her in November of 67 in Southampton?
Correct.
Yes, and I arrived in January of 68. And I was 11 years old. I come aboard expecting to see my mother there, and she wasn't there. She'd sailed off the day before on the Avon River. So at 11 years old, with my 13-year-old sister and 14-year-old brother, we are basically orphans on this ship with some people we knew and some people we didn't. But Neville, were you actually on the ship at that time, or you had just gone off to Alicante in Spain?
No, I came to the ship in January 68. No, 68, yes.
Yes.
Once they'd started the upper levels in Valencia, that's when I came on board. I'd been doing the Class 7 internship at St. Hill for the Sea Org, and I arrived at the ship there. That was my introduction to the happiness there.
So you were there, I think, just a short period before I arrived. And then just after being there for a short period, they moved. Well, first, the Royal Scotman got in trouble because nobody knew what they were doing. And Leon Steinberg was the ship master, or he was the captain in harbor because he didn't know how to sail it. And the port officials were getting upset with us because they wanted us to move docks, and we didn't know how to move docks. And then the Avon River sails back with my mother, and my dad had just come aboard, and my dad had noticed people not knowing what they were doing. He didn't himself know. But he just thought, these lines are too loose and different things. And he thought something was wrong. And after we finally we pulled up from the dock and we went out to anchor. So Neville, why did we have to move docks and go out to anchor?
Because the American aircraft carrier, I think it was the Franklin D. Roosevelt, was arriving, and they sent their escort destroyer, I think it was called the Coniston, had to come in and take our spot on the dock. And we had to move it back. We had to move the the Scotman back. And in the process of moving it back, managed to reverse into the harbour wall.
What harbor was this again, Janis?
This
What
was in Valencia.
It's the outer
Spain?
mole, you know?
In Spain? Yeah.
Yes. And I actually remember watching, I had a job of fenders, but there was no dock there to put the fender over to. But, you know, fender stations were called. And I remember watching my mother standing next to Hubbard on the Avon River as we're dragging, and Hubbard is there on a bullhorn yelling and screaming, and there's nothing he could do as he's watching us go back and hit the seawall. And Neville, you were aft of the ship when that happened?
Yes, I saw what was happening. I mean, we actually managed to damage one of the propellers.
Right.
And and I had to, in an act of insane stupidity, I had to go and rescue a boat that was being towed down the side, you know.
And what did you do?
I climbed over the side of the ship and sculled down the side of the ship to the rubbing strake to run along to untie the rope.
And you saved the boat.
I saved that boat. Yes, it was fine.
Yes. But anyway, then I remember seeing Hubbard. They finally got the little Avon River dinghy out, and he jumped on it and motors out and gets aboard the Scotsman in the cattle door, charges up to the bridge and takes control of the bridge to get us off the rocks and get us secured and everything. And this was around the same time that my dad had written a report to Hubbard, but he didn't know how to get it to him. So he put it in an envelope and addressed it to my mother, Yvonne, who was the Commodore steward at the time. So he gives it to Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty was the director of communications. Dusty takes it and gives it to my mom. My mom sees the report, gives it to Hubbard. Hubbard then gets James Byrne and some other people together from the Avon River and sends them on mission over to the Scotman. And the mission was to tell my dad, you're not in trouble. But everybody else got assigned a condition of liability. Now, liability meant that you were an endangerment to the group, and therefore you're not part of the group. And in Scientology, there's conditions. There's normal, and that means everything's okay. And then emergency, you better start producing. Danger, you're being bypassed. Non-existence, you don't exist, and so you better make yourself known and find out what's needed. And then liability, you're an actual endangerment to the group. So the whole Royal Scotman and crew were assigned liability, and the AO was aboard, and they were moved ashore to Alicante. So everybody that was left on board, there was maybe about 60 of us, could get trained. Yes, Mark.
AO, what AO's?
Oh, advanced organization. That's where the OT, operating Thetan levels, were delivered. Neville, you want to jump in here with anything?
Yeah, I was in charge of delivering the upper levels and administering them, and I'd actually been moved off to Alicante before Hubbard, had James Byrne and others come on board. So I was in Alicante with the rest of the team down there, and we got called back to the Royal Scotman, and we didn't know why we were coming back. He just said, report back to the ship. So we arrived back in Valencia Harbour, cars and taxis and whatever, to find this ship there with a dirty grey rag tied around the funnel.
What did that mean?
It meant the ship was in liability. The ship had been cast out of the group. It was, and everyone on board was now considered, lower than dirt. And mind you, we were a fairly rebellious bunch of people anyway, So when they sent James Byrne on board to oversee us, whip us into shape, it was like asking Bambi to take care of Godzilla, He had no chance, I mean, we were summoned to the tween decks area, and he stood at a chair and said we all had to stand to attention, which went down very well. And Otto was sitting at the back with me, and he was eating a chicken leg. Otto was sitting at the back eating a chicken leg and paying no attention to the guy whatsoever. We started talking amongst ourselves. So the more we did that, the more that James Byrne felt he needed to enforce himself, and the more he did that, the more derision he got. So that's how we dealt with the guy. He just ignored him. And
I'm
we
sorry.
got to sign various posts. I was assigned the post of fourth mate.
Okay.
Which meant I was also the medical officer.
The medical. Okay, good. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I have a couple of establishment questions. Okay. So how long had the crew, before they were assigned liability, how long had they been crewing the boat, and what training had they had before that? What what was the condition of the boat before that in terms of competency of the staff, and who was the captain?
Okay, well, let's go through the photos and we can point that out.
I'll describe it as
this is
disorganized
before
chaos.
Okay, but I meant Janis, before the liability. I mean, had these guys gotten any training?
We have a photo of the Royal Scotman.
Okay,
to show people what we're talking about.
All right.
All right, so there's L. Ron Hubbard, the Commodore, in front of two of his three ships. The big one is the Royal Scotman. The smaller one is the Avon River. And it was on that little boat that he was on the Bullhorn, as watching that big boat drag its anchor and hit the rocks. So next picture. There she is again. Now remember, she was picked up in November of 1967, and this incident happened in March of 1968. So you're talking 4 months, maybe 4 or 5 months. And the crew had to do the able-bodied seaman checklist in order to learn about the ship. But we had the advanced organization on the ship, so there weren't a lot of crew. Most of them were administrative people. Uh-huh. And when we got in trouble, they were sent ashore, and Neville with them, to deliver Scientology, leaving a smaller crew behind, and they weren't trained. So there was no real training. And even later on, years later, Hubbard did say liability was not the correct condition to assign it, but that is what he did at that time.
Okay.
And I'd like to point out, too, when this happened, Hubbard was really mad at his wife, Mary Sue, because she was on board and she allowed it to happen. Now, she wasn't the ship's captain or anything like that, and she ended up having to beg him to allow her and the children to stay, because he was threatening to send them back to St. Hill, as because she didn't do anything, she was an endangerment. And she begged and pleaded, and she ended up being made the captain and responsible to get everyone trained. And if you go to the next slide, Leon Steinberg there on the left was the captain. And next to him, many people, old-timers in the Sea Org, will remember Wally Burgess. But Leon was the captain, and when James Byrne's mission came in, Leon got removed, and Mary Sue became captain. And the next picture is Leon being a decky, painting away, because he's no longer an officer and captain.
Okay.
Neville, you want to fill in anything else on that? Well, when we came on board, I mean, we just took a look at what was going on, because we'd been away from all this going on with this, with the should we say, the recriminations, you know. Mary Sue was now a captain when I came back on board, and we just took it all in our stride. I mean, there were several of us who came back together. When we came from a very comfortable operation in Alicante, you know, where we had a nice berth in a Residencia Raycar. You know, we had good times in town. You know, we enjoyed ourselves. Good crowd on the lines, and all of a sudden, driven back to this. So fair enough. But it was yes. I meant my first job as a medical officer was to oversee the well-being of the crew. The crew. So the first morning of medical thing was I had a sick parade at 8:30 in the morning, and I thought this is no really good being up 8:30 in the morning to do this lark. So I said, right. So the first person I had was one of the non-Scientology engine room people. He'd been in one of the boats up top fixing something, and he'd strained his arm. Then I had two others came along board. One was, I think, had a headache, and someone else a bit seasick. So I decided, well, the best way of curing them is to administer some effective, medication. So each of them got a salt tablet, a vitamin E tablet or vitamin B tablet, and a 5-grain cascara. Cascara is a powerful laxative.
Oh, no.
So that's what I gave them. And after that, the whole cure were cured. Not one person after that did I have at sick parade. The crew were entirely healthy. They could be limping and crawling around the place, but they never turned up to see Herr Doctor, as I was known as.
Well, I don't blame him.
So I had a stress-free operation as a medical officer for the rest of the cruise.
That's
right.
great.
Now, there's Mary Sue, who
Yep.
I don't know what her own sea training was, but she definitely depended on Baron Berez and Pookie and you and John O'Keefe and James
And Bill Robertson.
and Captain Bill Robertson. That's right. Yep.
I mean, people above Baron Berez is about as much use as hair on a frog, really. I mean, the guy was a complete liability to planet Earth.
Yes, I have some Baron Berez stories.
You know what his real name was?
What?
Herbert Brian Berez.
Wow.
So that's why he called himself Baron.
Well, I'd prefer Baron 2 over Herbert. Okay, there he is. There is Baron on the right-hand side, James Byrne on the left, and Otto Roos back there with no shirt on. That is so Otto.
Yep.
Why he always was no shirt?
Oh, yeah, he always had no shirt. He'd always be on the deck sunbathing or whatever. And there's our man Neville with smoking.
Our special guest.
Yeah. And behind him is Art Webb, who I believe is still at the Flag Service Org as an auditor.
Yes. And that's Jill Van Staden, is it?
No, that's Marion Powell.
Marion Powell?
Yes.
Good God, she's changed, hasn't she?
Yeah, she has. Well, yeah, we have more on her later.
Yes.
Yeah. And then who was in this lifeboat lazing around, Nev?
I deny any.
Oh, is he in there?
Yes.
Where?
The closest
I was at the back, I think, on that one.
You were? I thought you're the one that's closest to us.
I was somewhere. I may or may not have been there. I deny any existence of presence at the time,
Yep, they're working hard.
This is so true,
Yeah. What's the next one? Oh, there's Mary Sue.
You asked
captain.
about Mary Sue had any sea experience. No, she didn't. But, she she decided that she was going to take over as captain and see us through it.
Right. And she did.
Yeah.
She did. And there she is inspecting the ship with Otto Roos.
Yes.
Hey, Neville, what was Mary Sue like when you dealt with her? What was she like?
She was great.
Yeah.
She was great. If you had to be on the right side of her.
Well, Neville says that because apparently, according to Candy Swanson, who was my tutor at the time, Neville and Candy and John O'Keefe and Mary Sue. Every night they hung out in the research room or the A-deck lounge and had a good time partying or chatting, right?
Yes, something like that.
Music going.
Was
Yes,
she a
we did.
fun-loving person?
She could be.
Yeah.
She could be. I mean, she was no shrieking violet.
Okay.
But,
Ready for the
Alright.
next one?
Yeah, there she is with Otto still. Candy took these pictures, Candy Swanson.
okay.
All right, I'm ready for the next part. Here we go.
Okay. So then what happens as part of our getting ship trained, it's decided that we're going to lower some lifeboats and 3 lifeboats. So about 10 people per lifeboat, maybe, yeah. And we were lower the boats, and each boat was assigned a mission. Like one, they had to have someone dive to the bottom of the ocean and pick something up and a sample up and bring it back. Another mission was to draw the outline of the coast. It was just kind of to get experience. So here we are. This is the lifeboat I was in with Baron Perez as the in charge. And we lower it, and it's all oars. There are no motors on these lifeboats. It's all oars. So we lower it. All 3 are lowered. We all push off. And Mary Sue says, as we're leaving, be back by noon. Now, she didn't say what day. She just said, be back by noon. So we push off and we start rowing, and the winds pick up and the current changes. And the next thing you know, you go to the next picture. Oh, there's Captain Bill Robertson. And you can see LRH on the funnel there.
Yeah.
Okay, next picture. And there's Mary Sue with Phoebe Maurer watching the crew do the drills and lowering the boats. And then there's Dusty Rhodes as the coxswain. Dusty Rhodes is still at the Flag Service Org as an auditor. And
Is he
then
the one with the hat? The one with
yes,
the hat?
yes. And then with his hand out pointing, that's my dad, Peter. And behind him on the left is Fred Hare. So we can go to the next picture. There's Captain Bill and Quentin Hubbard watching us lower the boats. And now we're in the water, and Dusty's barking out orders to tell everyone to row. And so we're rowing and rowing and rowing. We do our mission. The winds pick up. The current changes. And we are headed to this town here.
Now, where is this, Janis? What is it in Spain or where?
This is in Spain. Neville, do you remember the name of the town?
No, we were south of Benidorm.
Okay. And now, didn't we, in order to get there, didn't we sail through some Spanish Navy waters that were restricted?
Oh yes, but we did that a few times backwards and forwards actually, over their restricted area. No, the thing about this landing on that beach was that when we got to the beach, we couldn't get back because of the wind. We couldn't row the boats back. So Bill Robertson is on this flashlight semaphore, flashing instructions: return to vessel, return to ship. And we just was holding our hands up, shrugging, like Gallic shrug. And the more we just didn't come, the more irate he got with his flashes. Now, by this time, the local Guardia Civil had turned up, all right? And seeing us on the beach and see this light flashing from the ship, they're going, what's going on? They thought we were spies. An illegal landing of spies.
Janis, we're further. He's jumped ahead, right? So it's go a little bit further ahead.
So this is the first boat which I'm on. I'm right there in the middle of the picture with my back to the camera, and we're pulling the first boat in because we could not get back to the Scotsman. No matter how hard they rowed, we could not get back, and we were actually being pushed into the shore. So it was like, okay, let's just go with it. And then we'll figure it out. And we had no passports and no money. So it was just, we were just going out for the morning to row a small distance and row back and bring the boat back up. But here we are now, stranded, beached on the shore. And you can see in the front of this picture, there's some policemen who have now shown up because we are illegally in Spain.
How did they know that you guys were? How did they find you? There you go. There they are.
Locals.
Yeah, the locals reported it. That, these illegal aliens. Now, you got to remember, Spain was under the dictatorship of Franco at this time.
Yeah.
Women wore dresses. They did not wear pants. Women listened to everything the man said. They did not have their own bank accounts, could not make their own decisions. And here we are, half of us are women, or a quarter of us are women, all in pants in this fascist country.
But also remember, the Guardia Civil were fascists. They were thugs. They would the slightest provocation, out would come the guns or the batons, and they would just bully their way through you.
Yeah.
So you'd learn to give them a wide berth.
These men were all armed.
Uh-huh.
As they,
were they local police, like town police, or were they national, like army or military?
No, this is like the local flying squad. They were the Guardia Civil, the upper level of the enforcement. They were responsible to Franco directly.
Okay. Now, who's this in this picture, Janis?
That's Joan Robertson and two of the guards. And they nothing would happen until they talked to the Commandante. And I kept hearing Commandante. So nothing would happen. And they just kept an eye on us as we were there and talking to us.
Did somebody speak Spanish? I mean, obviously these guys probably didn't speak English. Is that right? Or how did they communicate?
They did not speak English. Joan Robertson and Candy Swanson both spoke a few words.
Spanish.
So between the two of them,
they had to convince them that you were not invading Spain.
Yes, exactly.
Some of us who had been on the Sea Project in Las Palmas, we had a smattering of what would describe as industrial language, which was not high Castilian, But
right. Yeah,
they must have seen the ship offshore and these three lifeboats coming ashore, thinking they were being invaded by somebody. You know what I mean?
Well, and not just seen us offshore. We were going through their restricted waters to get there. But anyway, what happens? What's the next picture? That's Barron on the walkie-talkie, obviously to one of the other boats or to the Scotsman. And then, there's Sue Pomeroy talking to Haviva Cass. The other boats haven't arrived yet. It's just Barron's boat, which I'm on. And and they're again still talking to the police, trying to explain who we are. Just a picture of the lifeboat. There's Haviva.
Who is she?
Haviva was an auditor. She married a guy called Bo Walters, who actually, I remember Amos Jessup telling me, Bo was assigned to the chain locker of the Avon River. Neville, were you there when he was assigned to the chain locker?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, well, Amos said that he didn't know Bo was in there, and they actually lowered the chain.
Oh, my gosh.
And Bo said he had to lean up against the wall as close as he could get. And afterwards, Amos told me this story. He said that Bo, when he got out, he just lit into Amos about how you could have killed me, But anyway, Haviva married Bo, and she ended up getting pregnant, and the two of them were transferred to the Advanced Organization in Denmark. And then I don't know what happened to them after that.
Okay.
Haviva was first married to a guy called Joel, Cass.
Oh,
An Israeli
okay.
guy, about 1964, 65.
Okay. Now,
So I'll give you that.
Haviva was a lovely lady. I really enjoyed her. Anyway, so here's the second boat coming in because they couldn't get back to the Scotsman.
You can see the waves coming in for sure.
Yeah. And here we are. We're helping them come in. Just further, there's someone is actually being, some woman is being piggybacked off the lifeboat so she doesn't have to get her feet wet. And they're just securing the rudder. And then here's the third boat coming in, and you can see a blonde hair right by that middle oar, and that's Candy Swanson, who was my tutor at the time, and she spoke a little Spanish and helped Joan talk to the police.
Yeah, you basically had to explain we couldn't row back out because of the tide coming in, right?
Right.
No motor and all that. And that's what happened.
Yeah, and they didn't know what to do with us, you know. So on to the next picture. Okay, so here, that's Joan Robertson, and that little waif there is me. And the locals put some food together for us, and we also went through the lifeboats and pulled out stale crackers and barley sugar, and but the locals put some crackers together and sent that to us, and some water so that we could at least get something to eat.
And they just kept you on the beach, right? They didn't let you go.
They kept us on the beach under armed guard. And in fact, there's a picture later on, which we'll cover in another video, of some stairs going up the cliff. And Claire and I actually went up the stairs. We were just off exploring. And when we got to the top of the stairs, there was a young policeman with a gun held on us, and he marched us all the way back down the road. He was like thinking we were going to escape or go spy on something. I'm 11 years old and Claire was 12.
Wow. That's the end
What else,
of
Neville?
the first part.
Well, yes, because on the beach, I mean, keep ourselves occupied. People playing leapfrog and dancing, anything, just to try and keep the body going and keep everyone in good spirits.
Was it cold?
Yeah, and keep warm. Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah. Remember, this is autumn time series because at this time of day, the tourist season was now over.
Yes, that's right, because all the restaurants were closed in town.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why the locals all kind of put crackers together for us, because there were no stores open.
No.
Yeah. We're going to cover the rest of the story, right, Janis, on another video?
Yes. Yeah, we thought we wouldn't have time to cover it today, and we didn't have enough photo space for it. So we're going to do another video with more photographs. And when we do that, we're going to tell you what happened to us.
So we got a little mystery sandwich here.
Exactly. What happens when you arrive in Spain with no announcement, no passport, no money, and you don't even speak the language?
So we have time to talk to Neville about other things too, Janis.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So
it's been interesting. That whole time was interesting. But we bonded together as a group. That's the important thing. We bonded together. And when we got back to the ship, that is another story.
Yeah, when we got back to the ship, it was another story.
Let me ask you a question, Neville. Were you, when you are out at sea on the Royal Scotman or whatever, during the Liability Cruise or whatever, did you ever feel afraid being out at sea? I mean, like, you guys weren't really experienced, right, in seamanship.
Well, I was used to it because I was the main Condition 1 helmsman. So I used to take the Royal Scotsman in and out of Valencia to the harbour. So I was used to that side of it. and some of us had already had experience on doing certain jobs. So the bridge crew had some experience together. So although we were novices, we weren't complete novices. It's like, you fish and fumble as you go along,
Yeah.
Well, you had sailed on the Avon River before this.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Which did you prefer?
Both were very interesting experiences.
Uh-huh.
The Avon was it was great.